Good evening and welcome to the August Volunteer Forum, coming from you from the jewel of the southeast region. At least that's what the locals tell me here. Downtown, I guess not so sunny at the moment, at Mallacoota Fire Station. First and foremostly, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal lands to which we are broadcasting tonight and that which you are all watching, and pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past and present. I especially would like to extend those respects to any Aboriginals or Torres Strait Islander people watching us this evening. Tell us where you're watching in from. We're always keen to understand where our members are logging in, watching the Volunteer Forum across Victoria, across Australia, across the globe. It always amazes me where our CFA members find themselves at various times, and it's fantastic to see where people are logging in from. As usual, we have our senior managers and key leaders at CFA online this evening in the chat, looking to answer any of those tricky questions that you might have, and certainly helping me out in answering those questions. If I don't get to your questions tonight live on air, at least have a look in the chat. You'll probably find that one of our dedicated staff members will be there to provide an answer for you. A jam-packed agenda tonight. It's quite a special agenda and a show, given that we are, as I said, in Mallacoota, and that a community that suffered quite considerable loss and some hardship during the Black Summer fires of 1920. We're going to hear a little bit more about the effects of the fires on the local community, but more importantly, what the community is doing to bounce back and rebuild better. So we're looking forward to that. On the panel this evening, I've got Tracey Johnston, Mallacoota Captain. Thank you for having us this evening. Trevor Owen, our Deputy Chief Officer for South East Region. Welcome, Trevor. We've got Lynn Harwood, our Fuel Management Committee representative. I'm going to hear a lot about fuel management and what it means to the local area. Lloyd from MADRA, which otherwise stands for the Mallacoota and District Recovery Association. So I'm pretty sure we're going to hear some pretty good stories from yourself about your great organisation and what you've been doing for the local community. So welcome and thank you. We're also going to have Mary O'Malley from the Wilderness Collective, and we're going to have a good chat to Don Burke himself. Bryce Watts-Parker, who's from the Friends of Mallacoota group, and he's here to share some pretty special plants with us and tell us a bit about the local flora and what it means and why it is so special to this region. So, as always, if you've got questions, please pop them in the chat. There's plenty to do, plenty to talk about, and we'll get to as many questions as we can on the panel as well as those online. But first, let's have a look at what's coming up this evening. Jam-packed agenda that we've got this evening, and we're going to kick it all off. We're talking to Tracey, a Mallacoota captain. Thank you, as I said again, for having me this evening, and all of us. We are being joined this evening by a live audience who are there waiting to see what's been put on this evening, and again ask the curly questions. I'm sure. See, there they all are. Give us a wave. They're all like hot coiled springs, ready to pounce into action and ask those questions from local communities and brigade members from around. And we're joined also by the dedicated staff members from District 11. So thank you to the team for also joining us this evening. Trace, I actually came up to Mallacoota not long after I started with you, Trevor, with yourself and Natalie McDonald, our CEO, in December 20. Got to say, looks very different from when I first did come up here, and obviously it was a very different place then.
Yes.
We took a bit of an opportunity this afternoon when I first got here to do a bit of a drive around and have a look at Mallacoota now and how it is recovering from the fire efforts. Talk us through, I guess, the fires from the brigade's perspective. Tell us a bit about the brigade and why it's important, I guess, that we are here and recognising how the community has bounced back.
Okay, so a couple of days out we knew that the banana fire track had started, so we were running around trying to get prepped. We didn't have a lot of members, so between all the emergency services I think we could patch together perhaps maybe 13 people. We were having a meeting in the meeting room and we looked up and all these people started walking in dressed in yellow. And I thought, oh yeah, what's going on here? And it was 3 strike teams had arrived, so that backed the pressure off considerably. So we then set about tasking to get maps and organising sectorisations and the like, and trying to familiarise them with the town before the big front hit, so everyone knew what they were doing. From there, the fire front hit, so it gets very busy, as you know. Lynn and myself and another lady were in the comms room, keeping track of all the tankers and what was going on. Everybody was out busy trying to save houses. Nobody died. We lost, unfortunately, about 115 homes, but the best outcome was there was no life lost. After the fires and once the shell shock sort of left, we swung into recovery mode quite quickly, which I think was really, really important for the town. we gave everybody a bit of a forward focus rather than dwelling on what was lost and whatnot. So people started organising insurance. Organisations started coming into town where we could get some help and some direction with some funds to maybe pick up and get going. So that rolled in pretty quickly afterward, which was great.
And first female captain in the 75-year history of the Mallacoota Brigade. How does that feel?
Yeah, good, busy. Very busy.
Look, a fantastic first, I guess, trailblazer for females in the Mallacoota Brigade, and certainly an achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a bit of a chat about the fire and what it meant, and I guess some of the actions of the brigade and the recovery here. Just a trigger warning for those that we will be showing images and talking about the 1920 fires, and I guess from Tracey's personal experience, but also from the wider community. So just a bit of a warning to our people, and remembering if you are struggling or you do need support, support is available on our member assistance programs, our member support line. Information is available on the members online, and we'll make sure that link is in the chat. Thanks, Brad. So you went with Eddie, had a bit of a drive around, a look around Mallacoota, and I guess and filmed some spots in the community. And what we see on the screen now is Mallacoota. Can you talk us through what we're seeing? Yeah,
this is my place. So the first part was our shed, and this is another shed, vehicle, horse float, looking up the hill towards the top of the Carbathong Hill. The structure in the background was a little cottage where we had housed all photos, musical instruments and storage and whatnot. Through some outdoor equipment, trucks. So this was within hours of the fire front passing. Was deathly quiet, but about every 3 or 4 seconds you could hear trees dropping in the bush in the silence. So they tried to hang on, and that was it.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing now is a regeneration around home. We had a small area around the house mulched, a bit of fire protection. And the recovery of the bush, as everybody can see, after a bit of rain and a couple of years, has come along very nicely.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about, I guess, the challenges of obviously being part of the local community, a community member, but also part of the local CFA, and I guess that duty that you were feeling to the community, and looking to work to protect them, but your own home was under threat.
Yes, lost a lot of outbuildings, all our outbuildings. Luckily my husband was able to get home, and the fire had started into the roof of the house, so he managed to get that out. All the gutters out the front burnt. Everything that was in the sheds, even today I still think, oh, I'll go and get, and I think, oh, no, that's not there anymore. But yeah, you sort of go down the street, and afterwards it was actually quite strange walking into the hotel after the fire with the strike teams and everybody there, and you get a round of applause, and it was sort of, you sort of think, well, that's what I'm here to do, kind of thing. There was no, you're not there for the accolade or whatnot, you're just here to look after the community. I've lived here for 30 years and had a business here, so it's just time to give back and help look after everybody.
Yeah. So talk me through what it was like for the brigade, and I guess for yourself too, in the weeks and then the months following the fire, and as captain, what were some of the things that you were trying to do to help the brigade?
I wasn't the captain at that point, but I know after the fires, a lot of work, everyone's busy trying to get things put back together, and then, as we all know, COVID hit, so everybody went into lockdown, so we really didn't get to get together and have a really good debrief, good chat over a beer, and tell what we saw and what we did at different parts, because we're all scattered all over the town, of course. So that isolation, I think, created a fair bit of disengagement, as it has across a lot of brigades, I know. So trying to get together, and then my problem now is recruitment. We're very low on numbers. So everybody's volunteer fatigued. So if they want to give their time, they want some compensation. And unfortunately, we need volunteers. We're a volunteer organisation. We can't go and pay people. So recruitment is proven to be quite difficult. So at the moment, I have 6 people available to turn out to look after my town.
And it is an interesting sort of risk profile for the town too, because during summer, the population booms, doesn't it?
Yes, we get about 10,000 tourists through. as was the case at the time of the fires. And trying to convince people to leave was a bit tricky as well. They were there, they were having their holiday, and they wanted to have their holiday. Some people who came to the meetings were like, oh no, we're going. And that was it, and that was good, but we're still left with about 4,000 or so people.
And so when we were driving around, we were talking about some of the challenges, I guess, with recruitment, and also the membership base in Mallacoota. And we've recently featured a story on some Fijian workers in an abattoir in Swan Hill, and been able to get them on board. And there are some visa workers in town, but as we discussed, there are some challenges around some visa restrictions, which I've given my commitment to speak to the federal government about in terms of whether we can get them involved in the local CFA. But also, I guess, there's a bit of an interest in terms of the possibility of a bit of a summer program similar to Lawn, isn't there?
Yeah, that would be good. So people visiting Mallacoota, coming for holidays, it'd be good if they bought their gear, and if there's a turnout, well, we'll have a look at their skill sets and see if they fit in and whatnot. Cap code them into the brigade, and then if there's a turnout, if they're available, if they're not out fishing having a great time, they can come turn out and just lend a hand to help us look after not only our local community, but then the influx of tourists that we get that the little town needs.
Yeah, so there you go, you heard it first. If anyone is coming up to wet a line, and you do feel like you can get away with bringing your CFA gear, if your family will let you. Tracey certainly would love to hear from you, and particularly if you've got a willingness and an ability to co-respond with the brigade. I think that's a fantastic idea, really, isn't it? You think about 10,000 people coming into the community during summer. Of those 10,000 people, surely there's got to be a CFA member in that or two. So no, fair enough.
I can give some hot tips on some fishing spots.
And some hot tips on hot tips on fishing spots. No, that's fantastic. So Trevor, from your perspective, Deputy Chief Officer for the South East Region, I guess hearing Tracey's story, there are, I guess, some stories very similar up and down the far east Gippsland here as a result of 1920.
Oh, many stories like Tracey's. I mean, our members are part of the community. Their own livelihoods, their homes, etc., were impacted. They had family at home. They're concerned about, but day in, day out, they went out to protect others, and that's a real testament to the strength of our people and what they do. It's incredible, and Tracey's example is an example of like many others, and colleagues were helping one another throughout, and knowing full well in the back of the mind you're on the truck, you're out there protecting your community, and your own property could be being impacted on. So yeah, it was tough for many people, but we put in a lot of provisions to check on our people, whether that be at a brigade level, the district did, or region, and certainly state and chiefs, and everybody were checking up. And I think we where we could, we intervened as early as we could to support, and that's when we kicked into the recovery as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, fantastic. And Tracey, we see Danielle has says she'll see you in December with bells on, and there you go with the gear on. So that's fantastic, and it's great that we can raise an awareness because some of these coastal communities are during the off-season normal time are small communities, aren't they?
Yeah.
But then experience a big explosion of tourism during. And interestingly enough, and I'm sure Mallacoota is probably the same, but if I was talking to the gang down in District 7, particularly Lawn, a lot of the members in that township work in the township, and during summer is the main time where they actually make their money, their living, particularly if they're a business owner and the like. And I'm sure some of your members are a little bit the same. Is that sort of the situation? Or?
Yeah, well, we're all busier at the Christmas time. So there's some self-employed members. So of course, you've got to go to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, thank you very much for sharing your experience. I know it may have been probably a bit tough for you, but it's certainly a sign of strength for yourself, and I guess a sign of strength for the brigade to be able to come and tell this story and to continue in serving the community the way that you do, and certainly in the drive that we did around and some of the footage that Eddie took there earlier. Not everything's been rebuilt.
No, not
There's
yet.
still a lot of vacant blocks in town, but we are starting to see more homes rebuild, and it's fantastic to see the community starting to bounce back. And that's probably a really good segue to you, Jenny. So the Recovery Association, tell me more about it. What do you do, and what have been some of the achievements?
Well, the Recovery Association started because a guy called Steve Pascoe, who had led a similar association in Strathewen after 2009, who happens to be related to Lynn's husband, came into town, and a group of local people got together and said, if we don't put our imprimatur on our recovery now, it will be imposed on us. So very, very important. With so much bad stuff happening, that we had a say in our recovery. So this group, they came to be known as the Thinking Group, got together. There was Lynn, there was Don Ashby, Gal Sands, Mari Connellan, Leonie Dawes, Leo Optenbrow, who's our SES controller. And I'd make the point that so many of us wear so many volunteer hats. It's a bit incestuous, really. But that group said, right, if the town is to have a say in its recovery, then the Recovery Association Committee has to be a microcosm of community. It has to reflect and represent the people in our community. So the Thinking Group got together with the Victorian Electoral Commission, and there was actually a formal election process to elect the 12 members of the committee. 44 people put their hands up for that role.
Oh, wow.
Could have been very dangerous, because if only 12 people had put their hands up, then they would have been the committee, and there was a little bit of fear that the lunatics might come out of the asylum. So I think a lot of people put their hands up just to make sure that didn't happen.
No, fantastic. And Lynn, what's your experiences with the association, and why it was so important?
I was part of the Thinking Group, and we felt really strongly that we needed to have a really broad representation for the committee, and in fact we achieved that. We did we held a lot of conversations with people to be really clear that what we wanted was not a person to represent their business or their club, but to represent Mallacoota as a whole. And so the really delightful thing in the end about the committee was that we had someone as young as 17 or 18, Bryce, help me out here, and someone as old as 70. We had Conservatives, we had Greenies. So it was a great committee, and it really did reflect the people of Mallacoota. And I think all of those, so we've now onto our third committee, it's re-elected every year. And I think still the committee is working for Mallacoota. It's not working for one club or for one business. Really, all the time, how we can help the recovery of Mallacoota. And I think it's worked incredibly well. One of the things that Stephen Pascoe said to us right at the start, which I reckon is a great thing to think about. He said, when you're faced with a decision that's difficult, remember to do no harm. So if it's going to harm people, step away from it. And I thought that was a great thing.
Jenny, you mentioned at the beginning there, I think that was probably struck a chord with myself, is a group of people in a community that wanted to be masters of your own destiny.
Yes.
And that thing about, if we, let's get involved, let's talk about it, let's work out what our recovery looks like, rather than having the recovery imposed upon us. What a very powerful concept.
My old Navy boss used to say, if you live within 10 metres of it or work within 10 metres of it, you know where to hit it with the shifter to get it going again. And we knew what was broken when we needed it not to be. We knew all those dodgy things that irritated us, that we had this opportunity to replace. And we knew we had to build new things to love. And we were very active about getting communities' views on what those things were. We had quite a comprehensive process of getting people's suggestions in and then getting community to vote on it. We were also quite active working with authorities, local government, state government, Commonwealth government, philanthropists, we pulled everyone in that we could.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say has been your biggest achievement to date?
Gosh, well, there's such a broad range of things. We worked across the 5 bushfire recovery pillars, so buildings, infrastructure, economy. One of the really valuable bits of work that the thinking group did was a snapshot survey to get communities' views. So I think the thing that we did probably best was we had to have a linch point, hanging points that we knew all community would agree on. And we came up with 2 things. One is that community felt strongly that no one would be left behind with the recovery process, that everyone who needed help would get it. And the second thing that everyone agreed on was we have this beautiful, pristine wilderness environment. People either make a living from it, they study it, they live here because they enjoy it. So every other initiative, every economic initiative, every infrastructure initiative had to be predicated on the fact that we maintained our wilderness integrity.
So from your perspective then as part of the thinking committee or the thinking group, it must have been a bit of a challenge considering Mallacoota being so isolated from major town centres and your more traditional support networks that ordinarily would be available to someone just outside of Melbourne or within Melbourne itself. So did that bring some complexity to what you were working towards and what you were thinking?
I think on the contrary. I think that Mallacoota has had its sort of rebellion in times past, and I think they were very much, look, the community is very much, we'll get it done. We're not going to rely on someone from the Shire or from here, there or everywhere. We're independent, we know what we want, we'll just get on with it. And I think it was a real benefit.
Yeah, well, getting on with it. Wow, that's certainly, by the sounds of it and what I've seen in the community, is what you've done very, very successfully. So thank you for coming and sharing your experiences for us this evening, to hearing how the community got together. We say the CFA is part of every community, and that's why, from building a community fire brigade perspective, we are part of every community. And I think that really does help when our membership comes from the community, and that means local people can come up with local solutions. And that's a really good example of how you've been able to achieve that. Hit a bit of a chord there, Trace. I think your brigade membership is up to about 50 already now, of people wanting to come up and bring, and a lot of questions here about can I have a hook to hang my PPC, and where do I store my rod? So I think we're going to need to modify the turnout area there to include rod and reel storage, I suggest. But thanks for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
It's been a very powerful experience, and one that I know our membership right across Victoria would thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Plug away.
Any orange people out there, we'd love you as well.
Yeah.
It is a community and a community services. So again, whether you be SES, CFA, Red Cross, wildlife groups, animal welfare groups, all those things come together to build a community during the resilience and recovery process. So thank you. It's that time again where Deputy Chief Officer Rohan Luke will give us our monthly update on training. So without further ado, over to you, Rohan.
Thanks, Chief, and welcome to this month's training update. We are continuing to formalise the development of the recommendations of the AFAC training review. A key area of focus is the recognition of our trainers and assessors. There is a number of initiatives under consideration to help recognise the great work of our volunteer trainers and assessors. We will keep you up to date in coming months of the progress. I've recently been looking at the breakdown of the use of our trainers and assessors, and will share with you some of the interesting information. The diagram that you're looking at displays the last 2 years of data on a percentage of courses delivered per district for both paid and volunteer instructors. The blue is the paid instructors and the green is the volunteers. The data doesn't include drills, however it clearly indicates the significant contribution of our volunteers to help train our members, and I'm acutely aware that if we were to include drills and local brigade training, it would be even greater. Well done to all involved who helped deliver training. As we know, training is a vital part of keeping our people safe and providing professional services to the community. We've also been reviewing the Australian Quality Training Framework survey results recently, and I want to share with you some of the positive and not so positive feedback. Firstly, the survey looks at our competency-based training conducted in 2022 and involved feedback from students, our group and brigade training coordinators and our district operational staff, and asked participants to confirm if they strongly disagree, agree or strongly agree with a series of statements. Whilst the majority of responses across the survey indicated a positive response, it's very clear that we need to continue to focus on some areas. Acting on feedback from members and developing customised programs are two areas that stand out, as well as recognising existing knowledge and skills. Our students identified the need to process results in a timely manner and provide greater clarity of the training pathways as areas where we need to improve. On the positive side, it's a standout. There is strong agreement that our trainers had an excellent knowledge of the subject content, that they explained things clearly and provided a safe environment to learn. Fantastic recognition of the professionalism of all of our educators. I'd like to thank those members who participated in the survey, as the feedback is vital for our team to focus on improving training in CFA. More detail of the survey results are available through our e-news released back in the 10th of August. Another outcome of the AFAC review makes recommendations for CFA to work more closely with other agencies to explore course material and benchmark our courses against similar services. And in the last few weeks, we've had 22 members at the New South Wales Rural Fire Service Training Centre in Dubbo participating in Managed Multi-Sector and Ops 2 course, known as their Group Leader program. Whilst the students came back with appropriate qualifications, we also sought their feedback on program content and design with the hope that we can deliver this into CFA. Included as participants in the course were 3 of our Joint Training Committee members from VFBV, who will also provide feedback through the Joint Training Committee. The committee consists of members from VFBV and our training team to form part of our crucial role to engage and consult on training programs to meet the needs of our members. Also, as part of the RFS program, we have also supported a number of students to meet the prerequisites of brief and debrief through our recently released Recognition of Prior Learning package. Well done to the team in Dubbo, and thanks for giving up their time not only to attend the course but to give us valuable feedback. At last month's forum, we saw the new Ultra Heavy Tanker, and we've received a number of questions about what training will be available to get these vehicles online for the summer. Our state-based driving team have been prioritised to develop a training pack to assist the districts to ensure our members can safely and effectively operate the vehicle, and whilst it may take a little time to complete this pack, the priority will be for the driving instructors to work with each of the districts to provide the necessary training at each brigade as the tankers roll out. I suspect the ultra heavy tankers will be a vital resource this summer, and we cannot afford to delay the commissioning of these appliances at each brigade. Lastly, we have some positive news around our drive off-road course. We are closing off on the final approvals to formally release the course, and to assist this, we have scheduled in a series of course handover sessions to our driver educators so they can help roll out the updated materials as quickly as possible. If you're a driver educator and you haven't been approached to nominate for one of the handover courses, I'd encourage you to reach out to your regional training teams to ensure you're included. In closing, I want to thank all of the training teams across the state for their dedication and tireless work in the field of training. Thanks, Chief. Back to you.
Thanks, Rohan, and thanks for that update. And certainly my big congratulations and thanks to the training team for all the hard work that you've done. It's been fantastic to see the crew go to Dubbo, but also that we're seeing some real progress on rolling out of training programs and initiatives, and also taking it seriously, the feedback of our members and the work that's been done by our ODT team to ensure that our training is world class and that we make sure our training is fit for purpose for our membership. Well, I'm about to be joined by Bryce from the Friends of Mallacoota group, but before I start talking to Don Burke himself, we've got a little video to find out what it's all about.
Friends of Mallacoota, after the 2019-20 Black Summer bushfires, identified that having the right native plants here in Mallacoota was going to be really important for our recovery. So Max and I, we set up the local Friends of Mallacoota nursery here, where we grow a range of endemic species. So we go out and collect the seeds locally, we grow them locally, and we plant them locally. And the seeds and plants that we grow and germinate here have played a really important role in revegetating the local area, putting plants back into people's gardens and providing critical habitat for animals that were impacted by the fires.
So we work really closely with the Royal Botanic Gardens, and often the Royal Botanic Gardens come out to Far East Gippsland, collect seed and grow those plants up. One of those plants that they've grown up is the Commissonia prostrata, which is a really rare plant found out on the Genoa River. And what we'll do with this plant is we'll plant this in town and back out on the Genoa River to supplement those wild populations.
Well, here I am, and thanks for joining us tonight, Bryce. And you've brought some plants for us to share. I'm not even going to start to try and pronounce some of these because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it wrong.
That's it. You've got to be careful with some of these botanical names, because if you say them, a little bit off, all sorts of bad things can happen. It's like a magic spell or something will happen. So.
I bet. I'm no Harry Potter. So. Locally born and bred. Tell us a bit about yourself, and I guess what it's been like growing up in Mallacoota, and I guess how you became to be involved in this process, because again, 1920 had an effect on you as well.
Yeah, so I guess I've had the pleasure of living here for the last 25 years, and I basically did all my schooling here. I grew up stomping around the bush, a bit of fishing on the lake, exploring the local area, and basically went off to uni, did my studies there, and then came back one summer thinking it was just going to be a nice relaxing summer, and then those 2019-20 Black Summers bushfires came through, and unfortunately on that night it was Dad and I, we tried to stay back and defend the house, but when we saw that fire kind of roaring up the hill, and we were on standby with the Scoresby fire truck, the volunteers that were with us, we all kind of collectively looked at that flame, that fireball coming up the hill, and we're like, no, we've got to get out of here. So managed to retreat back into town. Then we went back, and the Scoresby fire truck was there again trying to save our house, which we managed to kind of save for a little bit. Then in the process of saving the neighbour's house, we basically lost our house, which was really unfortunate. But I'll always remember when we were kind of watching the house rubble burning down, I got a little tap on the shoulder, and one of the firefighters came up, and they had a Gatorade and a packet of sour worms, and I tell you what, they were the best tasting sour worms ever. So,
no, well, absolutely, and I guess a big shout out and thanks to the Scoresby gang for the work that they did, and obviously made left a lasting impression on you and your family, and I know they'll be heartfelt to know that that they will always be remembered. So, talk us through what we have in front of us.
Yeah, so after the fires, as we kind of have identified it previously, one of the most really important things was our local environment and our local biodiversity. So in Far East Gippsland, we're in a really unique special spot where we have lots of really rare and endangered plants, and I've brought some of those plants along for us to have a bit of a look at today. So Max, who's also part of the Friends of Mallacoota, and I decided we needed to set up a nursery to grow some of these really rare plants, collect local seed, germination material, and basically get them back out into the people's gardens. We also worked really closely with Envite and La Trobe University, Cranbourne Botanic Gardens, to work out what plants are, I guess, a bit of a priority in terms of, they've been completely burnt out, really endangered, and we went out, collected material, surveyed them, and we've managed to grow them up basically, and we're going to be planting them in town in a local botanic garden that we're working on, and we're also going to plant them in private properties and back out into the bush as well.
All right. Well, we might get Eddie to come up here a bit closer and focus in on some of these plants here. So this one here, for the uneducated, a la myself, I reckon that looks like a bit of rosemary, but I reckon I got it wrong. Tell us what it is.
Yeah. So this particular one is just a beautiful daisy that is gorgeous white flowers. It's a type of paper daisy, Chrysocephalum baxterii. But we've also got some other really beautiful plants here. So I'll draw your attention to this one, the Genoa coria. So Coria laurentia genoarensis. So Obviously, vast amounts of the Genoa River got completely burnt out in those fires, and pretty much all known large living plants of this species was completely wiped out. So myself and quite a few others have been going out onto the river trying to find them, and for quite a while we couldn't actually find this species. They were completely gone from the river. And then we managed to find a couple of populations of about 200 plants. So we've managed to collect some of them and get them growing, and we're going to plant them in town as a bit of an insurance population. So in the future we can collect cuttings and seed off them, put them back out into the river, and also protect them from future fires.
So it's a bit like, a seed bank of sorts, a living seed bank here in Mallacoota. Tell us about the yellow plant.
Yeah, so this is one of the more cryptic species on the Genoa River, Senna acrophylla. It's got these beautiful little yellow flowers here. And this is one that at our nursery we quite didn't have the capabilities to grow up. So the Royal Botanic Gardens managed to go out, collect seed for us, grow this plant up and basically gift it back to us. So it's a really nice circle that they come down, they survey for these plants, they collect the seed, they give them back to us, and then we put them back out into the wild and give them out to the public.
Awesome. So what do we have in the tray here in front of us?
So we've got some really cool species here. So one of the really important things that the nursery has been doing is growing plants that are really good for in and around people's houses, being, fire-wise, being slightly more fire-resistant. And a few of those species is the native lily pilly here, which grows to about 3-6 metres, and it produces heaps of really edible little fruits that are fantastic for wildlife. Another really interesting rainforest species we've been working with is the bolwarra there, Eupomacia laurinia, and this species basically just lives in a few little gullies in and around Mallacoota, and we've been going out there collecting the seed, putting those plants back out into the wild, because as we know with those fires that did come through, they burnt really hot, and our rainforest species, they were really impacted. So being a plant that doesn't normally burn, they were completely burnt out. So we've been kind of helping them re-establish their populations.
And these ones?
Yeah, so this plant is a really special one. So for all the bird nerds watching, you'll know the glossy black cockatoos. And this is a casuarina, or a she oak. And what we've done is, obviously a lot of their food had been burnt out in the fires. So we've been working with private landholders in and around Mallacoota to plant heaps of these plants. And they produce these special little pine cones that the glossy black cockatoos, basically, that's all they eat. So we've been basically identifying really endangered species that we want to help out, planting this back out into properties, out into bush, giving them a bit of food so they can continue to not only survive but thrive into the future.
Out of all the plants here, I'll share something with you, I must admit, seeing... because I did know what this one was, yes, because brings back memories for me on the farm with my grandfather. We used to collect the pine cones, put them in paper bags, and sit them on top of the wood stove heated hot water system to collect the seeds. And salinity was a bit of an issue, and they are a salt tolerant plant. So we used to grow the seedlings and planted many hundreds of she oaks across the farm. So that one's a little bit special for me. What about down here?
So after the fires, we saw lots of species that we weren't quite used to, and that's just part of the successional process. So you've got plants that pop up after the fires, they grow really quickly, they produce lots of shade, they put nutrients back into the soil, and this is an example of that. It's a little pelargonian. It grows really fast and it plays an important role in stabilising soil. So when we're doing a few re-veg projects straight after the fires, which were not only important for putting plants back out into the bush, but it was really good for community to kind of get their hands dirty, feel like they're helping out the bush. We planted a lot of these little guys because they grow up quickly, they provide the shade and allow the, to keep the soil binded up so it doesn't cause erosion issues. And it basically, provides plants the opportunity to grow up underneath it. So.
Very good. So we are live. We do broadcast everywhere. So I've been publicly talking about preparing for this summer, looking to return to the traditional Victorian summer, hot days, hot nights, and reduced rainfall. And we had been talking about, particularly in some of the Far East Gippsland, some above normal bushfire potential for this year because of the dryness that we are seeing in this area from about Lakes Entrance all the way through to here at Mallacoota. I know a lot of people might be watching. A lot of people might be watching to live in bushfire-prone areas or high-risk bushfire areas. And if they are wondering, what sort of plants should I be planting around the house to get that fire resistance, what is your recommendation?
Yeah, so obviously if you're in a bushfire-prone area, it's really important to have a bit of a fire-wise garden. So, for example, with these casuarinas here, you wouldn't necessarily plant them right next to your house. You'd plant them further away from your house. And with the lily pillies there, that would be a fantastic plant to put near your house because they don't produce lots of bark. They've got nice green foliage and they create moist microclimates. So that's another really good species, and also kind of going for your natives that are a bit more succulent-like. So your local pigface, the local myoporum, there's some really good species that you can plant out that help create that bit of a fire-resistant barrier. It will reduce that radiant heat and reduce ember attack on your property. And obviously, with your gardens, it's also great to give them a bit of a trim to look after the plants, but obviously coming into a fire season, you want to make sure that you keep your gardens nice and prim and proper, not only for the aesthetics, but from a bushfire perspective.
Absolutely, well. Trimming those overhead branches, overhanging the house, cleaning the gutters, all the things that we keep talking about. Well, look, thank you very much for coming and sharing your story and bringing in some of these fantastic plants for us to talk about and get an understanding of what you and your team are all about in partnership with the Royal Botanic Gardens. We're going to throw to another video now, and we're going to hear about the Wilderness Collective and what they do and how they have impacted some of the local communities here in Mallacoota. Thanks, Bryce.
Thank you, Jason.
What do we do here? The Wilderness Collective has really been developed to help make this region thrive again. So after the 1920 Black Summer bushfires, we pretty quickly recognised that Mallacoota needed to have a year-round economy to be able to thrive again. The bushfires unveiled an interconnected, complex web of problems. So the Wilderness Collective is working to establish new social enterprises, knowledge development to help educate and thrive new entrepreneurs into the future, and a co-working collaborative space, which we're sitting in at the moment, the Wilderness Workspace, to help with community collaboration on projects.
Thanks, Paris. A fantastic introduction to a fantastic organisation, the Wilderness Collective. And I'm joined here by Mary O'Malley, who is a Mallacoota local. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the collective, what it does and why it's been so important in the local community.
Okay. Well, it was established by 5 local women, and it was basically a direct result of the fires. So as Paris said, we recognised really quickly that we could not continue to rely on a peak season economy. We needed many more strings to our bow. We could see a direct opportunity through the digital highway, which didn't exist after the fires because it burnt out all the NBN that was coming our way, but we knew that would come eventually. And that would be a catalyst for many more opportunities for local people. So it started off basically as, in the MADRA recovery plan. It was voted on as the digital hub. The focus was really on the opportunities that would come through that space and all the learning opportunities and the businesses that could grow from the digital economy. But it very, very quickly became much bigger than that. And now basically what we seek to do is to build the capacity and capability of the community to drive their own destiny, to be masters of their own destiny in a different sense. Yeah, so we have a very successful small co-working space. So far we've had about 183 people come through it. So far, our knowledge program, we've just opened a study hub. So it's free study space for anyone doing any kind of TAFE or university course. We've had a number of different learning programs. I think we've run about something like 34 workshops. And this is all in the last 9 months or so. We only really incorporated a year ago. Many workshop programs. We have about, maybe half a dozen people incubating in our incubator program, setting up new businesses. We've directly, engaged about 9 people. So we're proud of what we've been able to achieve
building,
space of
yeah,
time.
building a business, building an industry, building an economy, rebuilding a community. So bushfires, obviously, we saw a lot of damage in the town, and as you said, it cut telecommunications, it cut data, it affected local business. Then, not long after the fires, along came this thing called COVID. So it's probably been only recently that you really have been able to get that face-to-face and everything back up and running again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were all stuck in... And that's when it was really apparent to me that we really needed this co-working space and a decent internet, because I was, trying to conduct a business from a bedroom and trying to angle the camera so you couldn't see my bed and my messy room. But with that's come amazing opportunity as well. One of our targets is digital nomads. And I'm one myself. So I'm actually employed by a national research centre based at Macquarie University, and I'm able to live in Mallacoota. And it's because of, how we've turned the opportunity.
And I guess, digital enhancements is changing how we do business. It's changing how we work, changing how we live. And I know, the work from home, changes in people's work patterns and the like. So certainly it is fantastic to see that up and coming digital engagement here, as well as. So tell me about the importance of, I guess, social media in what you do.
Well, social media is our main form of communication with people, because Facebook and Instagram are pretty much where people in this community are, but people outside the community as well. Because the Mallacoota Community News has something like, 10, 11,000 followers, and they're a lot of the people who've come here over the last 10, 12, 20, 30 years and are great fans of Mallacoota.
So we've heard about the plants and some of the great species, and I'm not going to embarrass myself and try and pronounce them, so your job's safe, Bryce. At the front here, we've got some artwork from the local school as part of their recovery process and the like, and it really is about engaging with community, involving community. We heard about the Recovery Association and being masters of your own destiny and community, looking after community and building for community. What's the future plans for the collective, and where would you like it to see you go?
Well, it's a lot about these little people. So basically we're building for the next generation, and we're trying to open kids' minds to what is possible, that you could live... basically our tagline is a life lived fully in Mallacoota. So we want to create the conditions where you can basically, like Bryce, be born here, have a really good education here, do your uni here part-time or full-time if you choose, and then have a really interesting and nourishing working life, and then so on, and continue learning if you wish, because our knowledge hub is for lifelong learners. But it is about building up the next generation. So that's I
know, very good. And I'll give you 2 seconds for the plug. If people want to know more about the collective, where can they go to find out?
You can go to the website, which is www.wildernesscollective.org.au, and also you can bring your families to Mallacoota. You can extend your holiday. You can book into our co-working space and help our economy.
Absolutely, and as Tracey said, remember to bring your CFA gear with you. All right, well, thank you very much for coming along and sharing your story, and I wish you all the success in continuing. It's a great initiative. It's making some real change in the local community, and I wish you all the successes for the future. Well, it's time to, again, on the training type thing, we've been featuring a lot of our training campuses and getting some awareness to each of the campuses, what they do, some of the props and some of the activities that can be undertaken. And tonight we're going to feature Penshurst. So over to you.
G'day, welcome to VEMTech Penshurst, the heart of the southwest of Victoria. My name's Darren Wrench, pad supervisor. Been here for approximately 16 years and love every bit of it. Come along, I'll take you and show you how our pad works. This area here is our gas pad area. We all have gas cylinders on properties, whether it's your gas barbecue or your house is connected to gas cylinders. The idea of this prop here is to allow for cooling, multiple branch work and working in a team. Like all our props, it's all about working in a team. This prop here is our industrial gas bullet. This can be incorporated with the domestic gas cylinder rack or just by itself. This allows for crews to advance into for rescues and the important part of cooling this vessel. This prop over here is our industrial rescue prop. This involves multiple scenarios that can be run on this prop. It can incorporate 5 to 6 scenarios, or you can just keep it quite simple down to one scenario on it. And that could be internal rescue, it could be having a fire on top of it and using ladders, etc. This area here is our 2-car MVA area, or can be a single MVA area, or it also can be 1 car on fire into another vehicle. This allows crews to sight an appliance on a corner at an intersection and not block up the intersection to allow other people, other crews to come through, but also then allow for them to advance into an area where it's safe. Our Sever Station prop here, this is a prop that works particularly really well like other props where you actually can enforce reccio. So people can work on their reccio acronym with their rescues and their exposures. So this can have multiple car fires, a singular car fire, or a singular car fire with a fuel bowser fire. This concrete structure here is our fire attack building. This was one of the first props that was built on this site for when we opened in 1993 and still going very well. This prop here can be used for internal, external firefighting, also as you can see with the car under carport. We also have a barbecue fire there, so people can rock up to an incident where there is a barbecue fire and safely go to the barbecue fire and suppress it. As we pan across this area here, you'll notice this is our water treatment area. We capture all of our training water here that we train on the pad with. This is for the health and safety of all our people to ensure that they know and that we know that they're getting clean, treated water that's going to be good for their health and safety. This water is tested fortnightly by the CFA, by an independent contractor. One thing that's really unique about the Harvester prop is this is the only one that's on a training campus in the state, which we think is pretty special. It services the whole of Victoria, and it's something that everyone will come across at some stage in their firefighting career. As a sign to show that we're really well connected with the local CFA brigades and the volunteers in general, we also share the site with the Penshurst Fire Brigade. Well, there you go. That's VMTech Penshurst at a heartbeat. Hope you enjoyed the tour. Feel free to contact your training coordinator or contact myself direct. Enjoy.
Thanks, Darren, for the promotion of your training campus. I know you put a lot of effort and a lot of passion into making sure your training campus and the props are top-notch, rigidy-dig, and you put a lot of effort into making sure the locals get a fantastic training experience. And I understand you might be watching tonight, so a big shout out to you and the PAD staff there at the training campus. A couple of questions that have been, a lot of questions been asked in the chat. I know a lot of answers have been put in there by our dedicated CFA team, and I thank them for that. So I encourage people to keep asking those questions. One that I want to answer is Tim Bishop asked, has there ever been a call out in the middle of a volunteer forum? Tim, there sure has. And in fact, we heard about Mallacoota's little thing tonight. In fact, I understand, Trev, you're on the run tonight if something should happen, so... I'm
driving.
You're driving? I don't know, is he allowed to drive?
I don't know, is he qualified? You done the course?
Is he qualified?
I reckon I can, well, we'll see. We'll see.
That'll be fun when the bells drop to see what happens here. No, look, I think you're safe, Trev. I can hear the rain on the roof here this evening, so yeah, well, I reckon you might be right, but let's see what happens. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you.
The Fuel Management Committee.
Yep.
Tell me all about it. What do you do and why is it so important?
So before the fires, Mallacoota was dry. We hadn't managed to do very much in the way of hazard reduction burns for some years. And I think that's becoming a pretty common problem across Victoria in particular. The days when you can safely burn are getting fewer and fewer. And we hadn't been able to do any hazard reduction burns here for some years. And people were quite rightly getting disturbed about that. However, as a number of people have said tonight, people live here because of the wilderness, because of its beauty, because of the amenity of the place. So a number of us thought it was really important that we put something into place that would provide us with some protection, but also tried to balance out the biodiversity and the beauty of this town without just shoving some kind of, I don't know, mineral earth edge right around town. So we sat down with all of the agency folks. So we had reps from Deaker and Parks and the Shire and etc. The whole catastrophe, plus a number of community people who wanted to be involved, and we talked a lot about what we could do. And I think in the end what we came up with was to introduce some non-burn fuel treatments into the edges around town and into a couple of places in the middle of town. Always trying to balance that idea of amenity, reducing risk, but also of retaining the biodiversity. Now, that actually sounds pretty simple when you say it like that, but it's quite complicated. We had put a plan together which was quite workable. Unfortunately, it wasn't activated before the fires. So the fires came through and in a sense gave us a clean palette to work with. But still, the ideas that we'd come up with in terms of non-burn fuel treatments worked. And behind that, we thought what we would institute was some areas that were smaller mosaic burns. It seems to me that one of the issues that we're having with our fuel management is that it's either too wet or it's too hot for the kinds of large area, high resource burns that we're used to from the fuel managers. And I understand why that happens, because it's an efficient way of using your resources. You bring in 100 people, you get all of your documents ticked off, you drop your bombs, and you try and get the best burn that you can. However, I really don't think that is a useful way of heading into the future. And I think that this is the real challenge for us as people involved in fuel management, is to find ways to actually manage our fuel that is flexible and that allows flexibility in terms of how we use people and when we use people. I think we really do need to move away from the idea of looking at hundreds of acres, dropping in incendiaries and trying to get a good coverage. So what we're looking at is small, cool burns and not looking to get that 80 or 90% burn coverage, but being content with a 20 or 30% coverage that is then come back and done every year. And it's a real change in attitude. Whether that comes off or not, I think that's a challenge in front of us. And the other thing that I think, and the fuel management believes, is that we really do need to change the emphasis from firefighting, not completely move away from firefighting, but change the emphasis to community and what they can do in their own houses. No matter what sort of management we put into practice, I don't think that we're going to be able to stop all of the wildfires that come through. Climate change has put an end to that. So there's going to be a percentage of fires that get through, the best management that we can do. And therefore it's going to be up to those people who own the houses to really not just tinker around with clipping the bits of the trees that are over the house or cleaning the gutters, but I think we really need to put resources into helping people retrofit and make their houses far safer.
And it is a fine balance. And I've been doing some media recently around the seasonal outlook and what that means. And I know one of the questions I get asked by journalists quite a lot is, are we doing enough hazard reduction? Are we doing enough planned burning and the like? And I think it's great that you mentioned that non-burn fuel reduction activities, because planned burning as a form of hazard reduction is but one tool in the toolbox. There is mulching, there is grazing in certain circumstances. There are other fuel reduction activities that can be done in addition to actual fuel reduction burns. Because you're right, the window of opportunity for a good hazard reduction is very small. Too dry and you put the community in danger when you put fire on the ground. Too wet and as you say, you don't quite get that coverage or that depth or that burn. And then balancing that off with biodiversity and ecology, and thinking about fire frequency thresholds, time since last burn, those sort of factors, and thinking about regeneration of the bush at what points to reduce the overall fuel accumulation curve really is a challenge in the science. And if you haven't worked out, I used to do a lot of hazard reduction in a former life. And I think it's great that the team have come together and having those conversations, because they're conversations that we have to have. And it is in partnership. And people have heard me say it before, it's a shared responsibility. We play a part as a fire service, land managers play a part, but community and homeowners need to play a part as well, because when we all come together collectively, it works.
It works.
Yeah.
There's a lot more information too that needs to be unearthed, a lot more scientific data that needs to be gathered in terms of, what is a sustainable way of keeping areas that have already been worked on, keeping them up to scratch without having to wait for 5 years or 10 years until they get to a sort of a risk level again to be worked on. So, look, I reckon there's a lot of work to be done, and it's a really challenging.
It is, and I actually subscribe, I must admit, to your theory around it is one of those challenges in terms of, do you do those big broad acre burns, or is there value? And the answer, in my mind, is yes. Value in smaller mosaic type burns on the urban interface, because planned burning is not the silver bullet. Hazard reductions don't stop fires unless they've been done in the last week or two. They are designed to reduce the fuel. They're designed to create strategic fire advantage zones to reduce the intensity of the fire as it comes through. And I think the more that we can do that in a more targeted approach on the urban interface, will give not only the properties a better chance of survival, but also safety of our firefighters.
Absolutely, yeah. Just that little bit of extra distance where you can get yourself in and get your tanker in and do the work.
Space, we have a question from the audience this evening. We've got Stuart.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks for coming all this way. Next stop would have been New Zealand. Given the increased urban risk to many communities more remote from larger regional centres, has there been any consideration to creating an urban 4x4 tanker where the Mark 300 pump is upgraded to increase volume supply to more suit areas that perhaps should have a pumper but are yet to receive one?
Great, fantastic question. The answer is yes, and it's called a pumper tanker. And I know that there's been some design, and there's been a prototype that's been trialled at the moment. And I know we've got lots of feedback on that, and I know that it's likely to result in a number of design improvements of the pumper tanker. So certainly a lot of smart people are working on that at the moment to ensure that we get the right mix and typology for our brigades and their vehicle types in a changing environment, particularly those brigades that might be in an agricultural grassland type environment one day, and then find themselves in a semi sort of urban environment, then right through to medium pumpers or urban pumpers. So absolutely, Stuart, they're working on that, and you will see more talk about that in the future. And on that, I'll just give a little plug to Danny Jones and the team, and I know he's put it in the chat here this evening. Many brigades have been asking us about the next run of pumper production, and we'll have an announcement for brigades very soon. So some exciting news coming in respect to our next generation pumper. So watch this space.
Thanks, Chief. We'll be happy to take one of those off your hands.
I bet. Excellent. Thank you. So, Trev, Jewel of the Southeast?
Jewel of the Southeast, beautiful country, magnificent environment, and great fishing, as Tracey has already alluded to. So
absolutely.
More than welcome to take anybody that's visiting, and I'm sure Tracey is looking forward to the seasonal uptake of members. So
absolutely, yeah. There's quite a few people. We're going to have to get you a lot more hooks. Looking at the comments online there. So, Trev, tell us about summer. As I said, we released the seasonal outlook for spring. What's summer likely to look like for Southeast?
Well, firstly, Chief, keep coming back because you're bringing the rain. So the last couple of days it's been raining, and it hasn't been raining up this way for some time. So we know that it's been very, very dry, particularly across the Gippsland area and in other parts of the state. We do know, we've had 3 years of a La Nina weather pattern, so it's been quite wet. That in turn creates a fair bit of growth. In one way, it's been a positive because we've had quieter fire seasons, but now we know it's changing. So we're moving into, and we've already announced about an El Nino alert from the Bureau of Meteorology, and there's a 70% chance that that'll move into an El Nino. But parking that aside, we do know that the forecast for September and October is for dry weather. So a lot drier than average. We know that the daytime temperatures and nighttime temperatures are going to be hotter than average as well. And I note that even when we were in Bairnsdale the night before, it was 15 degrees all the way throughout the night. Unheard of for this time of year. So definitely in some parts of the state, yes, we've received increased rainfall, but we know that that's turning. So that's the thing we really need to focus on. The Mallee over spring, quite dry. You've been up there recently and you've indicated how dry you've seen it. And there's parts of East Gippsland of which I'm sure on the tour up here today that you've seen it's quite dry, even though we've received some rain.
Yeah, last weekend in Mildura, and a big shout out to Trevor White, I'm sure he's watching this evening. It was very dry, and we are predicting that Mallee region to be above normal bushfire potential for spring because of that dryness, as well as the area in the southeast, as we're saying, from Lakes Entrance through here to Mallacoota. But I guess for people's to calm, I guess, some people. We had a chat earlier about the fire dangers here to Mallacoota, and the fact that we did have a large scale fire through here 3 years ago. It has been a bit of bush regen. It looks pretty thick from the road, but once you walk through, what's it like?
Well, once you get past that verge effect, going about 4 or so metres, and it's actually quite sparse underground. Went with Lynn and just did a couple of fuel load assessments, and the fine fuels on the ground, there's probably only about 1 to 2 millimetres of that, and when you move those aside, the soil moisture is still quite good, the ground's still quite damp. The fuels are, like the wattles, are still quite green. The ladder fuels have all been burnt in the last fire, and the bark fuels have been burnt as well. So if we have a 40-degree day and 40 knot winds and a lightning strike, of course there'll be fire. But it's not going to have the intensity of the 1920 fires, and we should be able to round it up pretty quickly. We've got air support, and that should be a lot more effective because the growth's not quite as thick.
Yeah. So really, Trevor, I guess the concern areas are then obviously for those areas that weren't burned in the 1920 season. Yeah, absolutely. So we know that, as Tracey was saying, that those areas that were impacted, the fuel loading's not there, even though there's been a lot of growth occur. But there's plenty of areas which weren't burnt as well, particularly that coastal strip. And we know, even as you said, between lakes and sort of Bairnsdale and all the way up to Mallacoota, there was parts that weren't burnt. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on that. We've also got the broader Gippsland as well. I can refer back to the 2003 when we had the Alpine fires, 2006 the Great Divide fires, and so there's a lot of area there that's still unburnt, even though they were very significant fires in 2019 and 20. And I know, I guess my old stomping ground, the far south coast of New South Wales and across the Monero, very, very dry. In fact, are showing well below average rainfall. And in fact, talking to one of my colleagues in New South Wales only yesterday, they're expecting some parts of the state to go back into drought. So it just does go to show how, I guess, how quickly things can change and some of the dynamics that it's bringing. And so I guess from my perspective, we should be thinking about not only getting ready for the summer here in Victoria, but given the proliferation of fuels north of the border, and I've got to say west of the border as well into South Australia, there's a fair chance that perhaps a couple of strike teams might be on for interstate deployment. So one certainly for a border district such as District 11 probably needs to start turning their minds to.
And we do know that Queensland put on early fire restrictions. New South Wales have done the same thing in some 4 or 6 weeks early, and we're following suit. So I think it's a fair indication that parts of the state, one being up here, will see an earlier fire danger period introduced. Typically we would see up, in an average year around December, but it's going to be brought forward at least 4 to 6
And I know, having a chat to Miles there that's sitting at the back of the room, we were talking about how dry conditions are, and the fact that, as the local ACFO, he's giving some serious consideration in talking to local captains and key volunteer leaders. There he is. Give us a wave. Good on you. About what it means in terms of the dryness and considerations to the fire danger period here in District 11. And of course, the traditional fire season in Victoria. Obviously, I know Gavin Wright in District 18 he'll be thinking about fire danger period as well. So certainly one to keep an eye on right across Victoria. But of course, the weather being the weather and the Bureau being the Bureau, they're right 50% of the time as much as they're wrong. There is a chance of an East Coast low in early spring, and so certainly a lot of people have their fingers crossed for that low to come through, because that will bring increased rainfall and moisture into this region, which will certainly dampen those fire dangers. Well, thanks, Trevor, for coming along and having a chat about that. And the mention of an East Coast low, I just saw Miles' face and a smile go from ear to ear. I've never seen a man any happier. So let's hope the rain falls and continues to fall here in District 11. A couple of general things to touch on, and I would like to pause and reflect. Last week, I attended the funeral of Gregory Godkin, CFA volunteer, ex-captain and fire investigator from the Donald Brigade, who tragically passed in the line of duty, and we held a fire service funeral for him and his family. And I paused to pay homage to Greg and say, send all our condolences to his wife Jenny, son Matt and daughter Sally. And I know many people turned up in Donald last week. It was a big event and he had a fantastic farewell. So thank you for your service, and may you rest in peace, Greg. Australian Fire Service Medal nominations are open, so if you do know of a volunteer and a CFA member that is deserving and has done some fantastic things for our organisation, please, I encourage people to think about putting in a nomination. I'm actually particularly interested in people nominating people that have gone above and beyond and done something a little out of the box, particularly around whether it be matters of diversity, gender and inclusion, and I guess some other things that are a little bit different to the traditional, served in the fire service for a long time. So I encourage everyone to have a think about that, and certainly reach out to our awards team if you need some assistance in doing a nomination, and we've put a link in the chat if you need more information. Many people would have seen, and I touched on it at the last volunteer forum we have launched, and you should have seen the release of our Give Us a Hand campaign, being broadcast across streaming services as well as in local newspaper and on social media. I know I've been giving it a good plug on the Chiefs channels. It's had a fantastic uptake, and I know many brigades are sharing the link and sharing the videos, and they really are fantastic videos, aren't they? Really do showcase what our volunteers do, and it's not just about firefighting. There are many varied roles to being in the CFA. So congratulations, and a big thanks to our communications and stakeholder relations team for pulling that together. You did a fantastic job, and I know that many of our brigades across the state are very appreciative of the efforts of the recruitment campaign, and I hope to see plenty of numbers coming in over the coming months. Last week we also saw many people head off to Brisbane for AFAC 23, an annual event that is put on by the Australasian Fire and Emergency Services Council that showcases the achievements of many fire services and emergency services. It's not just about fire, it's SES and other agencies as well, to share initiatives, programs, events, and also for trades and sellers, I'm trying to think of a better word for that, vendors of technologies and fire service products to come into the Great Hall and also show their wares to many of our people. A lot of people from CFA went up and participated in AFAC 23, but what was very pleasing to myself and the executive at the CFA was some of the gongs that our people received. And on the screen you can see there Angela Cook and Kelly Stoner, who were awarded AFAC's Fostering Resilient Communities Award for the fantastic effort that they put together in some of their project work. And it's fantastic that they've been given the accolades for their hard work and dedication. So congratulations, Angela and Kelly. And I also want to give a big shout out to volunteer Nancy Bura of the Upper Beaconsfield Brigade, who was given the Women in Firefighting Australasia Outstanding Contribution by a Female Firefighter Award. So congratulations to all our award winners at AFAC 23. We said it before and we said it again. We want CFA to be a world-class fire and emergency service and recognised for its achievements. And the individuals that I just mentioned really go to show what makes it great to be about CFA and the hard work that our people put in. But it wasn't just about the awards. Again, CFA had a really good showing in the presentations and lectures in the AFAC conference. And we had John Gilbert, who presented his lessons learnt from a 13-year study from 2009. And many people might have heard me talk about some of the, I've got to say, quite scary statistics about what communities are likely to do and what people are thinking about in terms of A, their recognition of the bushfire risk, B, what they would do if they were ever threatened by a fire. And I think for me, as Chief, what was even more alarming is the fact that quite a number of people still wait for fire services to tell them what to do before they leave or leave early or take some action. And I think there's a lot more work to be done by CFA in terms of building community resilience around that. Because as we said before, we can't put a fire truck in every driveway. So when there's those big fires on. So there really is a need for people to look after themselves and help fire services in looking after general community. Emma Sutcliffe presented on managing emergency incidents involving electric vehicles, and I know many people have been to one of Emma's presentations, and she's a fantastic presenter on the subject of EV vehicles, and I know it's very topical at the moment, considering Deputy Chief Officer Cook was with Commissioner Freeman from Fire Rescue Victoria recently for a media alert on lithium-ion batteries and the dangers associated with batteries and causing fires. Likewise, we had Christy Butler presenting on the quantification of effective fire suppression profiles. That's a bit of a mouthful, but some essential and fantastic work. Fiona Mackin presented on the fire medical response program and where they're up to in relation to FMR. And Kylie Bates and Janine Ridley presented on developing women volunteers and some of the effects of our cultural reform and our behavioural standards and what we need to do to become a greater diverse and inclusive organisation and a modern organisation for the future. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've just been given a bit of a message to say that the radar's not looking good as the weather is quickly closing in here in Mallacoota, so I might try and wrap it up pretty quickly because we were likely to lose signal. Thank you very much to our panellists. Thank you for coming and sharing your stories. It's been fantastic. The rain's starting to fall pretty loudly now, so I apologise to anyone who can't hear me. Thank you to our live audience. You've been fantastic. Stu, thanks for the hard questions. I greatly appreciate it. thanks for taking the time and effort to come and say g'day. Just a reminder for all the dads out there, Sunday is your day. And what that means, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Socks and Jocks Day, or at least the Links Pack where we're going to get those presents from all the kids. And thank you very much. It's something that I'm looking forward to. So a big shout out and congratulations to all the dads out there for Father's Day. And I hope you have a fantastic event. Well, I look forward to seeing you all again next month. I understand we've locked in the date for Wednesday, the 27th of September. Have we got a location, Brad? No, not yet. To be confirmed. So thank you very much. Thanks, Tracey, for allowing us to come to Mallacoota and hold it tonight in the fire station. Thank you, everyone, for asking your questions. And thank you to the CFA team who have been online to answer those questions and bring it all together. And yet again, I want to take this opportunity to thank the guys behind the desk, and I do use that term collectively, my executive producer, Brad Thomas, Beth Ramshaw, Martin Anderson, and our roving cameraman, Eddie. Thank you very much for a fantastic forum tonight and the hard work that you do. It's been fantastic, and you're to be congratulated. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.